Welcome to Spiritual Foundations for Life. This is day number 350. What is the difference between authority and power? Well, authority is the right to rule. It's based upon the position that we have. Power is the ability to rule. It's based on the ability that we have within us. In Christ, we've been given both. Ephesians chapter 6 verse 10, finally, be strong in the Lord and in his mighty power. You know, a woman had received counseling and EKGs and CAT scans and all kinds of physical and psychological tests, but nothing the doctors did could account for the woman's torment. And in desperation, a minister was called in, and right away he noticed the pentagram that had been cut into her skin. And so immediately he knew that there must be a spiritual battle going on in the woman's mind and soul. And after a few questions, he discovered that she would live a fairly normal life during the day, but at night she would switch personalities and cut herself and torment herself. And when the minister confronted her, she actually jumped up and tried to attack him. So what did the minister do? Well, he just confronted the tormenting spirit. He took his place in Christ and then used his authority in Christ to command the spirit to release her. Now, just as an aside, he did not yell at the demon. See, get this. Our authority in Christ does not increase with the volume of our voice. See, when we scream and yell, whether it's at demons or at our children or other people, we're not exercising authority, we're operating in the flesh. Yelling is responding in fear, and that's exactly what Satan wants. He wants us to fear him. And when we're more afraid of the devil than we are of God, then we're elevating the devil as a greater object of worship than God is. See, there's no verse in the Bible that talks about fearing Satan. Yet the Bible does say in Proverbs chapter 9, verse 10, the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. And so authority is this right to rule, and power is the ability to rule. And as I said, we have both. So when we think about the Great Commission, we think about the commandment to make disciples. But what does the previous verse say? Matthew chapter 28, verse 18 and part of 19. Then Jesus came to them and said, all authority in heaven and on earth has been given to me. Therefore, go and make disciples. Jesus delegated responsibility to the disciples to make new disciples, but first he delegated authority to them. So if Jesus has all authority, how much authority does the devil have? None. And so Jesus' delegated authority is the authority that was given to us. And when we believe that with all of our heart, that the devil is completely disarmed of all authority, then we will have no fear of the devil. Now this is very, very important because the number one mental health problem in the world is fear. So let's talk about fear. First of all, fear is a God-given emotion. Anytime our physical or psychological safety is threatened, we should feel fear for our own protection. But undisciplined or uncontrolled fear will cause us to become very irrational and even sick. Now, fear is different than anxiety. Anxiety is due to something that we do not know. We become anxious when we do not know something or how something is going to turn out, how something is going to happen. Fear, however, is due to something we do know, something that we know about a certain object. For example, claustrophobia is a fear of enclosed spaces. Arachnophobia is a fear of spiders. Now, in order for a fear object to be legitimate, it has to have two attributes. Number one, it has to be potent, meaning it has to have power. And two, it has to be imminent, meaning it has to be a present danger. If you take just one of those two attributes away, it's no longer an object of fear. For example, rattlesnakes have power. They're dangerous. But there are no rattlesnakes in my room, and there's no rattlesnakes probably in your room. And so they're not imminent, and so we don't need to fear them. So all we have to do is just to remove one of those two attributes, and it is no longer an object of fear. Now, what about death and the fear of dying? Is death imminent? Yeah, we're all going to die. Hebrews chapter 9, verse 27. Man is destined, each one of us is destined to die once, and after that to face judgment. But for the Christian, is death potent? Does it have power? And the answer is no, not for us Christians. 1 Corinthians 15, verse 55. Where, O death, is your victory? Where, O death, is your sting? We have no need to fear death. Now, what about the devil? Is the devil imminent? Well, definitely. He may even be in your room or my room. 1 Peter chapter 5, verse 8. Your enemy, the devil, prowls around like a roaring lion looking for someone to devour. But is the devil potent? Does he have any power? No. Satan may be acting like a lion, but he doesn't have any teeth. He's been disarmed. And so there's no reason to fear him if you're a Christian. A man was driving his car and his two children were sitting in the back seat, and suddenly a bee flew in the window and the children started to scream. They're afraid of being stung by the bee. And the father simply reached out and let the bee put its stinger into his hand. Then he released the bee and he told his children, look, his stinger is in my hand. And so the bee has been disarmed. There is no way that it can hurt you now. He's now as harmless as a fly. Well, you know what? If we know the Bible, then we should know that Jesus took the stinger into his hands. And so the devil is now to us in Christ as harmless as a fly. Our key point today is that authority is the right to rule. Power is the ability to rule. And our key verse, Ephesians chapter 6, verse 10, finally be strong in the Lord and in his mighty power. And I'll see you again tomorrow for another episode of Spiritual Foundations for Life.